Yo, 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 my people. Yo, this is gonna be a bit different still. This is gonna be a little piece different to what you usually get, I can't lie. Um, First of all, this is an introduction to something I just wanna do on my channel. It's like, I wanna do just when I get a thought, a valuable thought, or something that I believe I can learn from and I wanna speak upon to engrave into my own mind a little bit more. I'm gonna do it. Let me move this to the other side just so you don't hear the water as much. But essentially, let me turn on noise reduction as well. Essentially, the topic of today, this is going to be a very short topic. The topic of today is one of the main principles of Stoicism. And I believe it can benefit all of us in a certain way because one of the main principles of Stoicism, and one thing that it can be, one way it can be defined and one way it can be summarized, is part one. There's three parts, and part one of those three parts is the idea that how can I summarize this in the most efficient way possible? That virtue is sufficient for happiness. And I mean by this, and what is meant by this, is if you don't understand what virtue means, it's behaving in high moral regard and in a high moral manner, and doing what is right and what needs to be done. Um, the reason I want to comment on this is because me personally, in my personal life, even if I feel like I'm not in the best circumstances and my life's not going the way I want it to go, if I'm doing everything in my power to position myself the best I can possibly position myself, I automatically feel better and can bring myself to a more peaceful, if not happy state. Me personally, I like to avoid the word happiness. I like to utilize the word peace and um, content more than happiness, because happiness, sadness, anger, all of these things, they're fleeting emotions, whereas peace is a state. Peace is a state of mind, and I believe it's more efficient and more beneficial for me. And maybe some people should try and stop chasing, some of yourselves potentially should try and stop chasing happiness and search for peace. And notice how I don't say chase peace, because actively chasing something you want to attain can almost negatively affect your ability to capture said thing. You may run into certain things that happen in your life and they affect your life in a certain way and it makes you unhappy. Therefore, you haven't become happy. Therefore, you end up being more sad and worrying about it. Whereas peace is more of a thing that you work on every day, whether that be through meditation, through reading, through prayer, through whatever you want it to be. You actively work on peace. You don't chase it. And that's the difference between peace and happiness in my mind, because I almost find that, although I like to stay away from the word, as I said, I almost find that when I'm at peace, I tend to enjoy my life more and have more happy moments, let's say, in my life, because I am more present, I'm more accepting of what is going on. And I believe that that's something that we all can take on board, is stop trying to actively chase happiness and search for peace. And I believe that that will do a lot more for some of you guys, as it has for me. And I know that I was in a very unhappy and not good place in my life. So this is one thing I wanted to share. And one thing you can compare this to, and one thing that might make this be understanding, is I'm sure you've all run into homeless people, disabled people that are really close to dying, or disabled people that have been put at a disadvantage due to what they were born with, um, but they're the happiest people ever, and they're living their life in such an amazing, happy way because they understand that virtue is sufficient for happiness, as the Stoics say. They understand that if they do everything they can do and act in the highest moral regard and do everything that they're able to with what they have, then they are going to live a much more um, peaceful, happy, and enjoyable life. Let me just let these people walk past so they don't pick up on the mic. But yeah, I was just traveling home after my tempo session, and I felt like this would be the perfect time to just do one of these videos because it just dawned upon me. I was just coming home and I realized that, like, personally, I was just enjoying my ride home, like enjoying the ride on my electric scooter, and I just thought to myself, why am I enjoying this right now? Not in a negative way, but sometimes I like to be very, and this might come as a shock to a lot of people because I'm always laughy, laughy, loud, loud. But that's when I'm around people. When I'm by myself, I'm not necessarily unhappy and I'm not necessarily really happy. I'm just very aware, and I like silence. I like to isolate myself. I find peace in isolation, and it just allows me to think. But as I was saying, I was just riding home and I just said to myself, why am I so almost happy right now? What is causing this sense of, I'm going to stop doing this because, like I explained, happiness is a fleeting emotion. So I can admit that I have been happy and not succumb to chasing it. But like I was saying, I was happy, singing my song, enjoying my time, having a good time, just riding my electric scooter home. I'm only 5 minutes from the track because I really wanted to talk about this, but I think it's something that we all need to do, is be more active in our in understanding why we feel how we feel all the time. And the conclusion I came to is just because instead of fighting against all the bad things that have occurred in my life and things that are occurring, I'm just accepting them and dealing with them and putting my best foot forward. And in doing so, I'm almost respecting myself more because of that notion. I have a higher regard for myself. I trust myself more, and I can enjoy my own time more. In another sense of the word, I'm loving myself more by just simply being truthful with the situation I'm in instead of trying to change it all the time. Because there's some things you can't change. And I think maybe I'm waffling now, but I just wanted to sit down and do this video because I know there's been times in the past where I've done certain videos like this on TikTok, which have been shorter. I don't know how long I've been waffling for right so far, which have been shorter, and people have personally messaged me on the side on maybe Snapchat or iMessage and said, you know what, I appreciate this video, bro, or I appreciate this video because it made me realize a certain something. But one thing I want everyone to take away from this video is virtue is sufficient for happiness, as the Stoics say. It is it's a very, it can be very, very difficult at times to put your best foot forward and do the best thing. But then at the same time, it's not, because we all have been in a situation where we have decided not to do what's best for us because we're not in the mood, because we're angry, because we're upset. And then you almost feel worse, and you know yourself, like there's a gut feeling that you get knowing that you didn't do what you should have done. So this is just to say, like, always put your best foot forward. Virtue is sufficient for happiness. Me personally, I would swap that and say virtue is sufficient for peace, because like I said, I found more success in my mental state and my general emotional state from trying to search for peace and actively try to attain peace than chase happiness. Because I don't know, there's a saying, if you, I might be making this up, but I've pretty sure I've heard a saying that, like, if you try and catch a butterfly with a bucket, you never will. No, 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 I'm capping. Where's the bucket come from? It's what is it? If you chase the butterflies, you will catch none. But if you create a beautiful garden, the butterflies will come to you. Something like that. And that's just a very important notion to understand. Now I'm done waffling. I do have to get home. Well, I don't have to get home. I've got nothing to go home and rush to. But I do want to go and eat my soup, my righteous and reasonable soup, fam. So that's a wrap for the video. I hope you can hear me clearly. I hope the water's not too loud, because I'm not going to come and sit here and yap for another 10 minutes again. If the video didn't come out well, it wasn't meant to be. But if it is, you'll see it on my YouTube channel. Manners and respect, as always.